Hello and welcome to the Idaho Renaissance Fair's YouTube page. Today we have something a little more unique. We're joined by Josh Daines. He is our vendor coordinator and is operations, actually.
Yes.
Operations vice president. So he plays an extremely important role in our event, honestly, for our group. The important thing, though, for today is how to have fun. And Josh, you have quite a bit of history with Dungeons and Dragons.
A bit.
How many years would you guess?
15, 16 years?
About to say that makes
Yeah.
you pretty much a master of any trade if you've got that many years in doing what you're doing. And I know Dungeons and Dragons is a big thing. Lots of people play. It's been going for years and years and years. But there are still lots of people who get confused. I'm one of them. I'll be right honest with you. There's so much time that goes in, and it seems like this huge bear of a project to try to get in. Plus, you're going to be dedicating hundreds of hours to your games, is what it feels like, for someone who hasn't been in it. So, what I would like to do is kind of, if we can, do a simplified here's how Josh Daines does his D&D adventures, how he sets it up, how he prepares emotionally, how he gets everything together from his characters to his storyline. And then at the end of the series, because this is going to be a long series, at the end of the series, we will actually finish with a completed adventure with whoever may have survived.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. People die. You can have, there's memes everywhere. You can look up where someone rolls a natural one. And, that's the worst roll you can get. Someone loses a limb, or an eye, or the ability to speak, or they can't stop from defecating every 20 minutes. Something awful happens. So we need to figure out how we get to that point. What builds us to that? So the first chunk, just like with any project that anyone does ever, starts with an idea.
Yeah. So, it's actually, I had a group of people come to me. They're younger people, 19 to 25. They came to me and asked, hey, we want to learn to play D&D. And so I started a new campaign for them. They didn't give me any parameters. They just said, hey, we want to do this. And so I started with, okay, let's make your characters.
Right.
To make your characters, this book is the only one you need. It's the Player's Handbook.
Is there a specific generation of handbook? Because again, this has been going on for a long time.
It has. This is the one that you can buy in any game store. They only will carry this edition in the game stores anymore. If you want to find the earlier editions, you got to go find them in used games, used bookstores or online. Might still sell them. I'm
Probably
not sure.
eBay or something like that. eBay's got everything.
But personally speaking, and this is just because you brought it up, the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons is not my favorite.
Okay.
My favorite is actually 3.5. As a DM, as a dungeon master, that is the best version for being able to create your own things.
So what?
And that's a kind of a hot take because a lot of people are going to argue with me on that.
Right. This is a personal thing. This is not sponsored by Dungeons and Dragons. No. This is not any of that. This is just Josh is our dungeon master. And he's got personal preference because he's an old fart. He's been doing this a long time. We've already covered that. So, what version is this one?
So this version is 5th edition.
5th. Okay.
And I probably shouldn't get too much into the history because if you want to know the history, there's better sources on YouTube to find the history. But my favorite is 3.5 because 3.5 is where they really got into the how of everything is done. They really got into They show you all the math.
Oh.
And some of it feels like calculus, but they show you all the math. They show you the equations. They show you, okay, you want to create your new creature that isn't in the monster manual, isn't in any of the supplemental books we have or anything like that. Here's the things you have to do to start with it.
Gotcha.
And it just kind of goes from there. And so as a dungeon master, you had more tools with 3.5 than you do with 5th edition. With 5th edition, it says, do you really need to create your own monster? Or can you just reflavor one of the ones that we've already done?
Right.
And they don't really give you how all of that works. A lot of it is just, well, does it feel like it's this level difficulty or that level difficulty kind of a thing? As I understand it, having read the different manuals and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
So, it's personal preference. I prefer being able to sit down and crunch all the numbers beforehand and build out a character or a creature or a villain and have it all be right. So that's my personal preference.
Devil in the details.
Exactly. But where 5th edition does get it good is with the players. They have all of that information, well, what the players need around the table. So with this group that I am just now starting, we started out with, okay, here's the player's handbook. These are your options. Build your character. And
all of that's in this book.
All of it's in this book, in the player's handbook. There's some supplemental books that give you some additional things. It still is all within the realm of the player's handbook. The classes, everything that you need to know to be a player is in the player's handbook.
Gotcha. So if you are just starting and you're not wanting to invest in, whatever, thousands of dollars worth of books and stuff, this is the book you want.
This is the book you want. $50 at any game store. I think Amazon is actually selling it for $35, or they were at one point in time. They have sales periodically. And then you get the book and you have everything you need to know to be a player.
Okay. So if you're forming a party, about how many players do you want in your party?
So Dungeons & Dragons is built to be balanced around a 4 or 5 player party. I typically end up running parties that are a lot higher in number, which can be fun, but also cannot. The game mechanics of a fight really make that turns it into a slog, and there's a lot of downtime for individuals when you have more than 4 or 5.
Okay, so ideally when you're starting, go for a 4 or 5 player group.
Yeah, the current game that I'm doing, there are 5 players. They all built out these characters, and they're like, yeah, I was looking at them, like, this all fits well within the realm of the Underdark. So I started building my campaign after they had their character set within the Underdark.
Is that the normal way you want to approach it?
It depends. It's really situational. A lot of DMs will go, okay, this is the campaign that I am preparing, and these are the rules that you have to follow to fit within my campaign.
Okay.
I've done that a few times as well, where it's, okay, we are playing a campaign, and everyone has to be a martial character. Martial meaning they don't use magic.
Right.
Right? I did a campaign where, okay, everyone has to play a magic character. You can start out with, these are the parameters and this is the campaign and I need you to build your characters to fit that campaign. Or you can look at your players and go, okay, what do you want to play? And build your campaign around the characters.
Gotcha. So if we were to just be a starting dungeon master, like this is going to be our first campaign. We have a little bit of experience with it, not necessarily a lot of experience with it. What is the easier campaign to set up? Just one that you are planning, or?
For a very first campaign, for someone who's never done much before at all, has a basic general idea of the rules, I would suggest doing setting up your world, setting up what you want, the story you want to tell, and then finding people who want to tell the same story. Because really, Dungeons & Dragons, at the end of the day, is a storytelling adventure, right? Between a group of friends. It is a cooperative storytelling game. And everyone wants to feel important. and everyone wants to play a part, and everyone wants to be able to fit into the story.
So for our example, if we were just starting, we would need to have in our mind a story.
At the very least, an outline of a story.
Gotcha. So let's do that. Let's
Okay.
go ahead and let's spitball some ideas and try and come up with what our adventure story is going to be.
Okay.
So you're going to be the dungeon master, which means you do not play a character, right?
That is a common misconception.
Oh.
The dungeon master plays all the characters
Okay.
that are not played by the players.
Right, the NPCs. Right, the NPCs. Non-playable characters.
Non-player
NPC.
characters, yeah. That's what the dungeon master plays. And it's a big job if you are telling a big story. For a small DM, right? A small time, this is my first time playing. If you want to go big, more power to you. If not, that's what I'll set up here.
What, maybe
Small
4?
scenario, we'll say 4 people that are wanting to play the game with me. So it's me and 4 others. And
Total of 5 people for
Total
those
of
of you
5
who
people.
can't count.
And so, total of 5 people playing, because the Dungeon Master is still playing. He has to have fun too. Dungeon Masters, if you're not having fun, quit being a DM. Right? Don't just flip the table or whatever. Talk to your players. Talk to them, talk it out with them and say, hey, this isn't fun for me. Something has to change. But yeah, so we're looking at a small group, inexperienced players. A couple of things that will be needed first is the player's handbook. The other thing is the Dungeon Master's Guide. The DM needs the Dungeon Master's Guide
Why?
because there are rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide that the player's handbook doesn't have.
But could you play with just the player's handbook?
In theory, yes. In practice, no. There is so much information in the Dungeon Master's Guide that you need to have as a Dungeon Master to have the game make sense.
Gotcha.
Right? So there are all kinds of things. There's a lot of really fun stuff in here on, like religion to creating a campaign to magical items, how to make things, how to make monsters, how to make magical items. Creating a campaign, though, is on page 25. And as a small dungeon master, first time doing it, this is going to be where you want to start. And it's not in the player's handbook. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And it starts, it says start small. Start with a small village. Start with just what your characters need to know, what the players need to know about the area. Create a home base, create a region. Start an adventure, a starting adventure with small monsters, things like that.
So a really good example of that for if you play video games, computer games, Xbox games, PlayStation games, when you play any, and Skyrim is going to be a huge example because it matches Dungeons and Dragons really close with your different characters, the magics and everything like that. And how does Skyrim start? Small. You're a prisoner. You're in a wagon. You go to a place. It gets destroyed. It's amazing. And it's not complicated. And you start small.
And that's actually something that's really important with your characters. How are you going to start your campaign? I have started it multiple different ways. A really common way to start a D&D campaign that it's almost become a trope is you're all meeting in a bar.
In a bar, in a tavern.
Whatever. And it's just a bunch of strangers that are, for whatever reason, sitting at the same table at a tavern. I did a campaign where everybody started out on a ship in a slave cage.
That's a rough way to start.
and within the first 10 minutes, that ship got into a fight with another ship, and it broke up the ship they were in. It broke up the slave, cannonballs came through and smashed the doors open to their slave cages, And that was how they escaped.
Oh,
Right?
gotcha.
And that was the start of that campaign. They ended up landing on a deserted island. They had to navigate that deserted island and then moved over to the mainland, and off they went.
Okay.
Now, that deserted island, they were there for in-game time about 10 days. Out of game time, they were there for about 3 months, because when you're playing a collaborative, cooperative game like this where you're telling a story collaboratively, there's a lot of time where you're talking and whatnot. And then, if you're meeting every week or every other week, some parties only meet once a month, and so your out of game time, your real life time, you could spend 5 or 6 or 7 years on one campaign.
Gotcha. So there's not necessarily a set time frame or time period. It's whatever you can do to progress the story.
And then your very first actual adventure, your actual movement as adventurers, needs to be something small. One of my favorites, and I stole this from one of the online personalities, the YouTube personalities that does a lot of D&D, how-tos and whatnot, and I think it was Matt Colville, but I could be wrong on that one. But it is use kobolds as your starting tutorial creature, because kobolds have a lot of things that are very good for teaching the rules.
Gotcha.
They're easy to kill,
which is always nice when you're starting.
Which is always really nice when you're a wizard with 4 hit points. It's really nice to have something that's easy to kill. They're easy to kill. They come in large groups. When they are grouped in certain ways, then they get special abilities that you then have to learn how to counter. But they're not super difficult to encounter. They also are really adept at building traps and things like that. So when you're going into a kobold town, you have everything from figuring out how magic works, to figuring out how combat works, to figuring out how skill checks works. And so kobolds are a really, really nice first, introduction to this is how the game system works in general as a tutorial. 4 characters and the Dungeon Master. You are in your village, and it's a small town village.
Is it a village of humans?
Village of humans. We're gonna stick with humans primarily for this is we're looking at this as it's your first time dungeon mastering. So rule 1, and this is just me, right? You don't have to do this as a dungeon master, but my first time dungeon mastering, I'm gonna say I want things to be as easy as possible for me. So I'm gonna say no weird special abilities. So we're not gonna have elves, dwarves, anybody that has extra stuff. So everybody's human. You're all the same age, and you're all friends.
Okay. Which makes it really easy to be together. So
Yes.
we could literally be anywhere because we're acquaintances anyways.
Yep. Your village gets attacked by orcs.
Okay.
Or goblins, or whatever the creature is, right? Actually, I probably wouldn't do orcs. Orcs are a little bit more advanced. So we're going to have goblins, right? It's a small town village. You've got maybe 15 families in it. You're all gathered together for a festival of some sort. Goblins attack. Houses are on fire. There's not really city guards or city watch or anything like that. So the 4 of you, who are the shepherds and the people who are, the young people who are usually out making trouble, are going to get together and go and try to stop this attack.
So in this particular campaign, what's going to be the end goal? Are they going to be new burgeoning heroes? Are they going to have growth opportunity as characters? Like, what is the main goal of this campaign going to be, of this chapter of the campaign?
Right. So that's the other thing, right? So this is just a chapter. You could set up right from the beginning where you want your BBEG, your big bad evil guy, to be at the end of the campaign as well. I usually, when I set things up, okay, here's what the players see. Small little village, and the goblins are attacking. Well, for me, this is just me personally, not everybody does this, but why? Why are the goblins attacking?
Right. No, and that makes sense.
Right.
Because is it just that they're goblins?
Is it just that they're goblins? Are they just... But also, it's a festival. Why aren't you guarding against goblins? Are goblins common to the area? Right? So goblins probably aren't common to the area because you're not on the lookout for goblins. Your city doesn't have like a town watch or whatever. So we're going to say goblins aren't common. So why are goblins here in the first place? And why are they attacking? Goblins, let's go ahead and just DM pencil this out as we go. Goblins are here because they've been kicked out of their place. They're attacking because they're hungry.
Gotcha.
Right? So this actually provides a couple of different ways that your party can take care of this, right? First off, they've attacked, your town is on fire, and people are being killed.
Right. Right.
Depending on the party, this is something you got to realize as a dungeon master. When we're starting this up, when we first started it, you thought, the initial thought was, fight the goblins off.
Right.
And me as a DM, my thought was, okay, they're going to fight the goblins off. There's probably a good 75% chance that at least one party member is going to go, well, I want to talk to the goblins and find out why they're attacking. Right? In the middle of a battle, your party's going to do weird things like that. Your players are going to do that. So they're going to stop and go, hey, why are you guys attacking? And Boblin the Goblin is going to go, I'm hungry! And then try and attack him, and he's going to, block him and knock him down, and then grab a loaf of bread and shove it in the goblin's face and go, stop eating us, eat the bread, just ask. Just be aware that your players are going to come up with out-of-the-box solutions for what's happening all the time.
Okay.
And you have to be able to, as a DM, you cannot allow yourself to get into the mindset of it has to be exactly how I did it, how I say. This is just, as I'm setting this up, I've prepared the goblins. I know in my head more than the players do why the goblins are here, why the goblins are attacking. I maybe have an idea of where the goblins came from, but how do I get my players from we've killed all the goblins to moving forward with the story? I need to get my players to figure out why the goblins attacked.
Okay, so step 2 is get to the understanding of why they were attacked.
Yeah.
So you need a hook
Yep.
to get them out of the village.
I need a hook to get them out of the village. So what I'm going to do is, I've got all these goblins. I'm going to include in my party of goblins a goblin chieftain.
Ooh, okay.
Okay? And he's going to be the boss of the first chapter. Right? The goblin chieftain. Once they kill the goblin chieftain, then they're going to notice he has trinkets or coins or something from where the goblins are from. Right? Now, that makes sense. They're not going to leave everything behind and run.
Well, especially
right?
not the chieftain.
Especially not the chieftain. He's going to take stuff with him. Maybe he has, and this might be a little gruesome, so I apologize, but maybe he has some elf ears on a necklace or something like that. Because he's a goblin, he's a bad guy, right? He does bad things. And so they notice this. And they go, well, these goblins, there's no elves around here either. There's no goblins, there's no elves. But the nearest place where the elves are is over there. And this goblin clearly came from somewhere that had elves. So that's going to be the hook to maybe we go and see what's going on there.
Gotcha. So could you have as like a backup plan if they don't succeed in their inspection rolls or whatever it is that you would call that, an NPC does an inspection, like the leader of the village, he does his inspection, he finds the object and goes, okay, we need someone young and strong and motivated and possibly troublesome to our village naturally that would be nice to have a break from. You four are going.
Yes. And that's how I would do it, whether they find the trinket or an NPC finds the trinket, is, well, there's this trinket here, or this, string of ears or whatever, that they've come from there. The elders are going to see this too, right?
Right.
And then the elders are going to have a council and say, we need to figure out what's going on. You four are our strapping young, brand new adults, 18-year-olds, whatever, go. Right?
Opportunity is golden.
Opportunity, and so that is so you have the start, the fight, finding the next hook, and then how to get them out, and then they move on to the next area. And then that next area has its own set of story, and that's where why did the goblins leave? Well, the orcs moved in. Or, the elves decided to commit genocide. Or something crazy like that, right? And now there's a completely different set of circumstances that they have to figure out when they get to that point.
Well, that sounds like a really good place to go ahead and start building. So in the next video that we do, we actually are going to do what?
Next video, let's go into how to make a character.
Okay.
I think that would be a good idea, especially with what we've already listed as these are the traits of the characters, right? Like they're human, and they're from a small town, so there's probably the most magic we're going to have is maybe a cleric.
Right. Which makes sense, because you want a healer. Every party needs a healer.
Yeah.
And no, absolutely. In the end, probably what we'll end up with would be some kind of thief or rogue character, a warrior tank character, our cleric healer character, and a bard? Maybe not a bard?
Maybe.
Ranger?
I mean, it kind of depends on, at that point, it depends on the players.
Oh, valid. That's
right?
valid.
Like, but you got to think about they're from a small town village. So yeah, you're going to have, the one kid who's super sneaky. You're going to have the
big dumb one.
The big dumb one who gets in the middle of everything, right? You're going to have the cleric, healer person, whatever. And then you might have maybe a ranger. But yeah, so what we have done so far, this is before you've even sat down and made players with your characters, we have planned out what it is. So this is the Dungeon Master session. Next time we film, we're going to go over session 0. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you build a character.
Okay, we can do that.
So we'll bring a character sheet, and I'll have you build the character out of the player's handbook, and we'll just do that. So.
Okay. Definitely make sure you give us questions about this, because if you're like me and very new at this, I'm sure there is lots of questions, but this video has definitely covered a lot.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and call that there. This has been the Idaho Renaissance Fair, Inc. We super appreciate you coming on in. We hope your history is as fun as our history, and we hope to catch you soon, either at one of our events or in the comments of the videos. So, huzzah!
Huzzah!